You remember Wild Gunman and how fun it was? Not that I'm saying Hogan's Alley isn't fun. This game's actually really fun. It's just very slow in comparison to the other two light gun games. By the way, for anybody who doesn't like light guns, you can relax. We're not getting another one for a while. There weren't too many of them. It was a gimmick, like everything else Nintendo has ever done. I'm pausing occasionally just so you guys can hear the sound effects in this game. I like to gush about the sound effects in a lot of these games. It's the exact opposite here. These are probably some of the most annoying sound effects I've ever heard on the NES. Just period. This mode is kind of obnoxious as well. There are 3 very different modes in this game, and with this one, it's kind of like Wild Gunman when you have the 2 bandits. You need to shoot the right guy or guys out of the 3. If you notice, there was a flash and nothing happened the first time. The problem with this game, and I don't know if it's just my experience or if it's the game in general, is that occasionally you'll miss when you shoot, generally when you're shooting towards the right side of the screen, and that's just not fair. I don't know why that happens. I don't know if that was an error on my part, if that was an error on Nintendo's part, but it's annoying and it should stop. If you're going to pick up one of the light gun games, out of the 3 first ones anyway, because I don't know anything about the light gun games after this, I just know they exist. If you're going to pick up one of the first 3 light gun games, this should probably be at the bottom of your list. It's not unfun, like I said earlier. It's just very finicky and very slow and not as entertaining as the other 2. I just don't get it. So every time you get 15 rounds, you get that sharpshooter, no matter how you've done. You can see I've missed 5 times, and it still gave it to me like I'm doing the best job in the world. I have never gotten this far without at least 1 miss, so I don't know if there's a different message if you're doing perfectly at that point. You'll also notice a lot of frame rate stuttering. Again, I don't know if that's me or if it's just the game being dumb. I'm going to assume that's on my end, that's my fault. But at least in this mode, I'm going to assume it's my fault. In a later game, I'm going to assume it's the game's fault, because there's a lot more going on. Now, the reason I'm doing this way instead of doing it while I'm playing is because this is very not entertaining to watch. I can tell you that right off the bat. If there's somebody who watches this video with the sound off and they're like, hey, cool, Hogan's Alley, this is fun to watch, then, you know, good for them. But I highly doubt that person exists. So, while I've got you here, I'm going to talk about the origin of Hogan's Alley, like the name Hogan's Alley. It's called Hogan's Alley because of police training, SWAT training, all of that. Whenever they're training, they use a training area called Hogan's Alley. It's got a lot of cutouts like this, but usually it's in more of a town setting instead of a shooting range like this. But this is named after that, and that's named after a comic strip, and that's a whole thing. A little bit of casual racism in there, maybe. It's unclear. It's hard to talk about. So, here's the second round. These are the cans. There are... The cans are more finicky than the other ones. If you shoot at a can, either it'll bounce or it won't. And there's no way of knowing what's going to happen. And in my experience, there's no way of knowing exactly how high it'll go when you shoot it either. It'll just bounce. As you can see, if you make it to the top of the screen, you get 300. If you make it to the middle, you get 800 points. The bottom is a solid 5,000. I don't believe I get a 5,000 once in this video. You land on that platform there, which you'll see at some point in this. You get 100. I don't know why you get the least amount of points for hitting that dinky little platform, but there you go. Maybe it's because it's the closest to the start of the screen. You know, I don't get it. So, this game is actually pretty important in the long run, in the grand scheme of things. Not because of this game, mind you, but again, because of Smash Brothers. I've talked about the Duck Hunt dog a couple of times. And he incorporates attacks from Duck Hunt, because he's from Duck Hunt. He even has the duck with him. He incorporates attacks involving Duck Hunt, Wild Gunman, and this. His most annoying attack, in my opinion, involves this can. He kicks it, and when it hits an enemy, you can hit the button again, and they go blasting. They don't go blasting, but it hurts them. And it's really hard to pull off accurately, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just not great with the Duck Hunt dog. I didn't play as much of 4 as I did the other Smash Brothers, so I didn't get a lot of practice with him. But, you know, que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Dogs will be dogs. Mutts will be mutts. There's Sharpshooter again, but with this one, it's 5 rounds, I guess. This game is pretty hard to talk about. Like I said, it's fun. That is the lag, the slowdown I was talking about. And I think it's the game's fault there, because there's so many cans on screen at once. If it's not, then, you know, I stand corrected. Who's to say, really? But I think that's the game's fault there. Now, listen really quick. There's another annoying sound effect. It's not quite as bad, in my opinion, as the of the moving targets, but I hate the sound of that gun. Time for the last mode, Game B. This is the city I was telling you guys about. It's got the cutouts, but this time they'll randomly show up in groups of 5 all throughout the city in random patterns. It's a crapshoot whether you get a good guy or a bad guy. You can't shoot the good guys. I'm going to shoot a good guy a couple of times accidentally in this recording not in this recording, in this session, because there's a guy with a cowboy hat, or what looks like a cowboy hat, and I was still in Wild Gunman mode, I guess, and I just saw the hat and I shot. So, you know, tricky there. This is an example of Nintendo doing what Nintendo does best. They love reusing assets. They always have, they always will. That's not a bad thing. But notice, there's the DK girder, and that was the guy that I told you about, that I keep mistaking as a bad guy. But there's a girder from Donkey Kong that they reused because it was there and they needed something. You know, like I said, not complaining, it's not a bad thing. It's there. They decided to reuse it. I'm not gonna judge. I don't make video games. If I did, I'm sure that I'd cut corners wherever I could. Not that I'm saying you should cut corners a lot, but if you want to reuse a texture or something, be my guest. Just don't, like, make 50 characters and have them all be the same exact thing. That's a jerk move. I'm sure that I'm going to come across a game in the future that does something like that. We'll find out, I'm sure. I got it good, because I beat the first round. Once you finish off 25 of them, you beat a round. And once you beat a round, then basically just cycles, but faster. Obviously, the enemies are all going to be in random places again. I don't know if I've said this yet, but in each of the modes, you can only miss 10 times. If you miss 10 times, then it's game over. And if it's game over, then obviously you can't play anymore. You just start all over again. This game is kind of fun if you want to waste like 10 minutes, but like I said, if you want a light gun game, I'd pick up Duck Hunt or Wild Gunman. Duck Hunt's my personal choice, but, you know, I grew up with it. I'm kind of biased. So, kind of running out of things to say. Thank God, because the recording's almost over. The next game will hopefully be more fun to talk about, or at least more reactionary. I'm going to actually record while playing the next one, because it's either going to be a game I enjoy or a game I enjoy being annoyed at. One of the two. You'll find out once I upload. I'll tell you, don't worry. Okay, game over there. Back to the screen. There's going to be one last thing playing that I want you guys to listen to. Something that I actually really, really like. I love that song.